WendyCCTheUnderground.com. WendyCCTheUnderground.com, home of the J.R. Bang Morning Show. Weekday mornings at 8 in the morning. And on the phone right now, I have a controversial figure in the city of Chicago right now. Author of Sweetness, The Enigmatic Life of Walter Payton, Mr. Jeff Pearlman. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, but I have a question. Who was that I was just listening to? Say
That was LUV featuring Arami.
Okay, here's my one criticism. The guy's rhyming body with body. Like, give me a break. You can't come up with, move your body, take your body. They're like, how about go to the potty? You know, like, something a little like more creative. I mean, seriously.
See,
believe me.
As an author, you're like, I am just appalled by the use of words here. This is amazing to me.
I mean, come on. You think Tupac would have ever freaking rhymed body with body? Show some creativity here. Jesus Christ, Tribe Called Quest would be laughing at this guy. Sorry, it's true. Sorry. Body and body. Skilo. That's like Skilo.
Oh, my God. Wow. Jeff, I need to have you on more often just to criticize music, man. But yesterday, first of all, you had your book come out. And be honest with you, man, last week when all the excerpts and the quotes and the headline hit ESPN.com, Walter Payton was a drug addict and went suicidal, I was like, who the hell is this jackass that's writing all this negative stuff about Walter Payton after he's been gone for like 12 years, you know what I'm saying? And then that was the feeling in Chicago, you know, plain and simple. When you walk around in Chicago, you were like, who is this guy, you know? So how did you feel when that initial criticism come out?
I hated it. I really hated it. I mean, because I worked really hard and really long on this book. And there was, it's interesting. It was an excerpt in Sports Illustrated about a sort of singular time in his life after he retired when he was very depressed. And, you know, I think some of the context a little bit was missing. I mean, not in the excerpt, but when people talked about it, it was, you know, it wasn't just, people say, oh, this guy's writing he was a drug addict.
Right.
What he was writing is that he had a problem with painkillers after playing 13 years in the NFL. There's a huge difference connotation-wise. You know, when you hear drug addict, you think heroin or coke or something like that, you know? But,
right.
But in the context of he abused his body for 13 years, he missed one game, it's different. You know, I just felt like people really, the context wasn't there, not in the excerpt so much of the conversation.
Okay. And when it came to the SI cover and the excerpt, how much were you involved in that? Did you know what they were going to use? Did you say that might not be a good idea? How much input did you have on what was going to come out?
Well, I would say almost no input. I mean,
okay.
I knew what they were going to use.
Right.
And maybe, I guess in hindsight, I mean, really, in hindsight, if I could, whatever, wave a magic wand to change it, I certainly would would. But I don't know. You know, Sports Illustrated comes along. They say, we want to put your excerpt on the cover.
You don't say no.
What are you going to say? Man, of course you don't say no. And there's no way I sort of predicted that kind of backlash. And maybe I just don't know Chicago well enough, or maybe I was naive. I didn't see it coming like that.
Now let's go back to the beginning. What made you want to do a book on Walter Payton?
Well, I mean, you know, first and foremost, he's iconic. And he was I'm 39, so when I was growing up, you know, Walter Payton was, you know, he was right there for me with, Tony Dorsett and Billy Sims and Eric Dickerson and Marcus Allen as these sort of this golden era of running backs in the NFL. And, you know, I'd read Walter Payton's autobiography, Never Die Easy, which came out in 2000, right after he died.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was, you know, glowing and beautiful, and but also incomplete. You know, there's no such thing as a life without problems.
Right.
You know, without difficulties. I mean, kind of what makes us is our difficulties. And I felt like sort of what really made him who he was missed in that book. And I wanted to know what made him who he was. I didn't want to know. It's not like I went out looking for so-called dirt or
right.
so-called scandal. I just wanted to know who the man was. And he was always the guy I admired and looked up to and enjoyed. And furthermore, you know, back in 1999, after he had announced his illness, Sports Illustrated sent me to Chicago, outside Chicago, to his office to meet with him one-on-one. And it was one of the most memorable experiences of my life. I was 26. I walk into his office, and I don't even recognize him. I mean, he was so shriveled up and sort of beaten down by the cancer at that point that I didn't even recognize him. I thought he was an older man who worked at the office of Walter Payton.
Now, the thing is, the biggest criticism, of course, is the depression and everything like that. Now, some of the main people you talked to who gave you that information, like I think Linda Connolly and like Kim Tucker, like people like that. I guess the question is, when you interviewed them, when you talked to them, did it seem like there was any resentment towards Walter? Because the reason I ask that is because it feels like if you're going to come out and say these things about somebody, it's going to take a lot to come out and say it. You know what I'm saying? Because if you really care about somebody, you probably want to keep those stuff close, close to, your chest right there.
You know what? I sort of disagree. All right, so there certainly was no, I would actually say there was more, grudge isn't the right word, but I would say there was more sort of, I don't know, animosity is even too strong, but I think people sort of resent to a little degree the Payton estate in sort of trying to keep up a certain image that wasn't entirely accurate. And I think certain people felt, why is it wrong to present Walter Payton as a human being? And what is the problem with that?
And is that what you were feeling from? And is that what you were feeling from them when you were talking to them, and they were kind of just?
Oh yes, I did. There was no, believe me, I'm not just saying this. I felt zero resentment toward Walter Payton. I mean, these are people. Look, people said like Bud Holmes, his agent. I spent hours and hours and hours with, and at the end of sort of Walter Payton's days, he and Bud Holmes were not on the best of terms. They had business disagreements. Walter was upset with Bud Holmes for sort of guiding him into an NFL franchise ownership position that never worked out. Mm-hmm. And so there was certainly at the end of Walter Payton's life, he and Bud Holmes are not on the best of terms. But you're talking about a man who spent, from his entire career representing Walter Payton. Walter Payton's entire football career, this was his agent. And he had more insight and more access to sort of Walter Payton than almost anyone out there. The same, Ginny Quirk, who I quote a lot. Ginny was Walter Payton's sort of right-hand man or woman in this case for 15 years.
Right.
15 years. So people can say, what are the motives, blah, 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 the motives. She had more access to this person than anyone for the last 15 years of his life. And this isn't a dig at the family at all. I mean, I have nothing bad to say about the Payton family. But factually, Walter and Connie were not together for the last 10 years of their marriage. So when people say, did you go to the people closest to him? I would say, factually, I did. Factually.
Okay. I can give you that. Now, Bud Holmes has come out and said that he thinks you misquoted him. Wait. I'm actually going to cut you off right there. Can I tell you exactly what happened? Okay, go ahead.
All right, do you know the website TMZ?
Right, yeah, that's what I got this from.
Right, exactly. And I hate how people take TMZ seriously. And I'll tell you the abridged TMZ story. This is 100% what happened. TMZ calls me a couple of days ago. Okay. I think it was a week ago or 6 days ago. And a reporter, Samantha, she only identifies herself as Samantha from TMZ. Okay. And says she wants to write something. This is right after the SI excerpt came out. She says, I want to write something about your book. Do you have anything you can give me? Any scoop you can give me? Any exclusives? And I say, no, not really. And I sort of make it clear to her that I'm, worried that they're only going to want something negative. She says, no, we take the positive too. I know TMZ. I know she is not telling the truth here. I spend about 15 minutes telling her one positive Walter Payton story after another, knowing that she could care less about this stuff, but just telling the stories. And I tell her these stories, and at the end she says, well, that's very nice, but we need a scoop, but we can't do anything. And I said, okay, goodbye. Right. So she calls, but she was very friendly. She calls me back, I think the next morning, and she has all of a sudden her voice is very sort of mean and aggressive, and she goes, why didn't you send Bud Holmes a book? And I say, what are you talking about? And she says, Bud Holmes said that you would send him a book to read before it came out, and you haven't sent him one. Why did you do that? And I say, okay, goodbye. Hey, because you never would give someone you interviewed a book before it came out, to proofread, or that's what you're saying. Right. And certainly no one who you interview would never say, oh, why don't you read it over first? And second of all, it was ridiculous. So that was the last time I hear from Samantha. Someone tells me the next day, you're on TMZ. I go to TMZ, a site I almost never go to, and it's Bud Holmes is, you saw it, is, angry and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he never said that Walter was hooked on drugs and that he was very much misquoted. Exactly. So, first of all, Bud hadn't even seen the book yet. Second of all, Bud Holmes is one of the nicest men in the history of the world. He's this 80-year-old guy in Mississippi who lives a very nice life and is a very happy man. And Samantha from TMZ calls. So I'm like, Bud, we had this long talk. He's a great guy. And I said, Bud, she kind of mentioned suing. Are you serious? He goes, she's just someone trying to dig up something. That's ridiculous. And that's what it was. It was ridiculous, And Bud wanted me to make clear, and I will make it clear. he did not say that Walter Payton was a drug addict in the sense that everyone is talking about. He said that he needed painkillers to get through a lot of his days, and that is no secret.
Okay.
That is what it is to be an NFL player, 13 years, your body abused, period.
Now, the Payton family.
That's my TMZ story.
No.
That's my TMZ story, please.
Now, the Payton family, like I said, I work with Jared Payton, and I actually talked to him before I came on the phone with you.
And he's a great, I'm sure he hates me, and he's a great guy.
No, actually, he doesn't hate. Actually, that's the thing. He said he does not hate you. He has no hard feelings towards you, and he actually said sincerely that he hopes your book does well. The only issue that he has is he feels that you did not talk to the people he believes knew his dad's best, like his mother, his grandmother, and Eddie Payton, Walter's brother. He feels that if you don't have those people really in the book, you really don't have a full definitive book on Walter Payton.
Well, I'll say two things. Number one, I actually appreciate that Jared said that the first part, and I really, honestly, truly, I mean, from my time with him, found him to be fantastic.
Right.
Honestly, fantastic, and a nice guy, and you know, really, it means a lot to him to carry on his father's legacy.
Right, and very much so.
I mean, clearly it does. I mean, I think he has 14 tattoos, and 5 of them are of his dad.
Yeah.
And he told me he wants to name his son Trace Quattro, 34, after his father. I mean, he's
right.
Jared Payton is a good guy, and you'll never hear me say a bad word about Jared Payton ever.
Okay.
No matter what he thinks about the book, if he does, never. Or Brittany, you'll never hear me say a bad word about those kids. And the truth of the matter is, people say, do you feel for the kids when you write this book? Of course you do. You know this is not going to be easy on them. You know when you write a biography of anybody that there are people who are going to say, oh, really? And I get that, and it's a conflict you certainly go through. To answer his criticism, I spent a lot of time with Eddie Payton, a lot of time with Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
I did not talk to Connie, for like 15 minutes outside of Bears game, but that's because she turned down an interview. There's not much you can do about that.
Right.
And I was at Jackson State interviewing Eddie, actually, and he kept saying, like, you can't talk, my mom, kind of made it no. So I finally just drove to Miss Aileen's house. That's Walter's mother. And I probably spent 25 minutes. I mean, she's 80-something years old. 25 minutes talking to her while she was gardening. And there was nothing, it was not a great or fruitful interview. But all I can tell you is it certainly wasn't for a lack of effort. And,
right.
I did interview nearly 700 people for the book. So
right.
I feel like I was as thorough as could be.
No, I understand that as well. But the criticism, the criticism is going to continue coming on. But what have you seen so far from the people that have read the book?
I think it's been very positive. I mean, I've gotten, Mike Friedman from CBS Sports 9 was one of the first who read the book to write about it. Dan Wetzel from Yahoo Sports, very positive. I think if you read the entire book, I really do. People see it. It's a very full portrait of a complex individual. And the other thing is, people have different sort of takes on who someone was. So, it's like the people who loved Walter Payton simply as a fan, watching him on Sundays at Soldier Field, they're going to have their own impression of him, and people who knew him personally will have their own impressions. Everyone will have their own sort of takes on him and who he was, and I understand the different reactions. I do. And
you know what, Jeff? I just want to say I appreciate you coming on and talking about it because, like I said, my perspective of this whole situation is was a little different than maybe people outside of Chicago, because people in Chicago have a certain feeling about Walter Payton, and when you see and the Payton family, and with me being cool, with Jared, you see how it can hit home. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
Absolutely. So when I saw you do the interview with Bomani Jones, which I thought was an excellent interview, by the way, I was like, I was like, you know what? I want to give this guy a shot. I want to give this book a shot. So I appreciate you coming on and kind of talking about the criticism and talking about the book and the family the way you did, man.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate the open-mindedness. Yes.
Thank you very much. Like I said, thank you again, and I hope to talk to you soon. Bro.
And now, please start listening to some good music.
Oh, no, don't worry about it.
I want you to do me one favor. Wait, you do me one favor. Seriously. On my website, jeffpearlman.com, I'm not even saying this to direct people there. I'm friends with a guy named DJ White Owl, who he was in a hip-hop group called Bad Ronald in the early 2000s. And he did when I first started working on this book, I said, I want you to do how to do a song, like a theme song for the book. And he did this, so he put this song together called Sweetness. and I love it. And I would love to hear your opinion on it. Go to the site and go to, like, view the trailer.